We are joined this afternoon by Jessica Huseman, a reporter with ProPublica, to discuss the Postal Service and any potential trouble she may see. Thanks for the time this afternoon.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, let's get right to it. You cover voting rights and election administration. Can our Postal Service in its current state handle mail-in voting?
Well, that's a complicated answer, and so I'm going to say both yes and no, and I realize that that's frustrating. The post office can certainly handle the capacity. 100,000 envelopes is actually not that much of a load for the post office. And so if we think about capacity only, the USPS is definitely capable of that. If we think about the ways that policies are changing to make that capacity more difficult to handle, then it becomes a little bit more difficult. So lots of people have been seeing the blue postal boxes be removed. A lot of people have been complaining about the fact that sorting machines have been removed from local polling stations. Those are actually normal and not alarming to me at all. What is alarming to me is the changes to overtime and also return and repeat mailing routes that will definitely complicate the election if those are not done away with.
Mr. DeJoy was appointed Postmaster General back in May. Has he made glaring changes to the way the Postal Service works?
So some of the things that he's done, like removing the equipment that I mentioned, have been long planned. And so Mr. DeJoy is not necessarily responsible for all of those choices. What he has done, however, is implement pretty extreme cost-cutting measures in terms of compensation for employees. So he's essentially banned overtime, and he will not allow a postal worker to go back out onto their route if they do not finish their route on the first go. And so because of that, mail is starting to stack up at postal service stations across the country, and you're hearing a lot of people complain about even non-election related mail being delayed for days or weeks.
Absentee voting, voting by mail, it's really not new. Because of the pandemic, though, it's really front and center in this election, it seems. Have there been widespread problems with fraud in this kind of voting in the past?
You know what? No, there haven't. I think the clearest comparison to what is happening right now and the extreme increase in interest and participation in mail-in voting is most comparable to the 5 states who have for the last several years been doing universal mail-in systems. Those states include Washington, Colorado, Oregon, Utah, Hawaii, and all of them have sort of streamlined the process, implemented very clear security that's easy to implement, that can be purchased off the shelf. And so other states are able to follow in their footsteps. So when people say that voter fraud is more likely to happen when you are mailing a ballot, that is true. It is slightly more likely to happen, but voter fraud as a whole is exceedingly rare. So it's taking a very rare event and making it slightly less rare, but there's nothing that should concern voters about the potential for fraud with mail-in ballots.
Final question. It seems Republican lawmakers are by and large against it. Democrats seem to be in favor of it. Is that true in your opinion? And if so, why do you think that is?
You know what, this is a really difficult question to answer because political scientists have studied this issue and have shown that there's really not a partisan advantage on either side for mail-in voting. I think the Republican disapproval of it has to do with a couple of things. First, I think that it's very difficult for the Republican Party to disagree with Donald Trump. And so because Donald Trump has made up his mind about vote by mail, you're not going to see a ton of national Republicans go against him, which is surprising because vote by mail is actually very popular. 70% of Americans report that they would prefer to vote by mail. And among the most eager to do so are typically older white voters who are very much in Trump's constituency. So Republicans are towing an interesting line here because they're coming out against it. But in fact, their supporters are some of the biggest fans of vote by mail.
Jessica Huseman with ProPublica, thank you so much for the time this afternoon.
Thank you.